Hi, everybody. We're just going to let people get logged on and then we'll start shortly. So just hold tight. Thanks. Okay, hello and welcome to the second annual Virginia Drives Electric Virtual Town Hall. My name is Stuart Gardner with the clean energy nonprofit Generation 180. Tonight, together with our partners, Chesapeake Climate Action Network, Virginia Advanced Energy Economy, and Climate Cabinet, we're working to provide Virginians with the opportunity to hear directly from elected officials and help continue to make transportation electrification a priority. Our event will be moderated by Kim Germain and Blair St. Ledger Olson. And a special thank you to the team members working behind the scenes supporting this event. Next slide. We're honored to have 4 Virginia General Assembly members joining us: Delegate Reid, Senator Surovell, Senator Boysko, and Senator McClellan. You know, there's some amazing electric vehicles on the roads today in Virginia: the Nissan Leaf, the Kona, the Bolt, the Mach-E, the Volkswagen ID4, and even more great vehicles coming like the electric F-150. But one vital piece of the puzzle to get more Virginians behind the wheel of electric vehicles is the dealer. Across the Commonwealth, the dealer provides a key service to get Virginians driving these awesome cars, trucks, and SUVs that not only have zero tailpipe emissions, but are amazingly innovative and fun to drive. So to kick off the evening tonight, we're proud to welcome our special guest speaker, Don Hall, President of the Virginia Automotive Dealers Association. Don, thank you so much for joining us tonight. The floor is yours.
Don, you are on mute. I'm so sorry.
Thank you very much. And I appreciate the opportunity to chat with all of you tonight about our enthusiasm and that of the almost 500 car dealers here in the Commonwealth, Virginia, and their enthusiasm for EVs. It is not only today, but it's our future as well. We're very, very excited about this. Electric cars are growing greatly in Virginia. There's no question that more and more people are showing interest. Our sales have not been great, but as we get product, they're really picking up and the interest is picking up greatly. And that is a great thing about our Commonwealth and the commitment that we've made to EVs. I'm here to tell you also that the ICE engine, the typical gasoline cars, if you will, manufacturers are no longer putting any money in those vehicles in terms of research and development. Their future is strictly EVs. There's a national, in fact, like international magazine called Automotive News that we all read every week in the industry. And let me assure you that every single week you have various original equipment manufacturers who are coming out with various articles about their commitments to EVs internationally and throughout the United States of America. This is not a California thing. This is the thing that's good for our environment, good for people with health issues. It is our future. And as an industry that has been around for 100 years and with a great desire to be around serving people's needs for the next 100 years, we absolutely are embracing EVs. The issue is to get them. And that's our big thing right now, is getting them from the manufacturers. As you know, today, all manufacturers have a problem producing any cars because of the chip problems and other issues going on within the automotive industry. I'm so excited about EVs that I'm a real believer that you lead from the front, that I actually now have a VW ID4. Just to give you an idea, the sticker price on that was $45,000. I'm a 6'2", 200-pound man. I can put 4 people in my car my size and have plenty of room for $45,000 at 235 miles charged. I took 2 guys, 3 of us total in the car recently to play golf in Charlottesville with 3 sets of clubs. They thought it was so cool, let them drive the car. More and more people are seeing these cars and realize how much fun they are to drive. Frankly, I have a ball driving the car. EVs are exciting, they're here to stay. They're great for our environment. They're great for the economy of Virginia as well. And so I hope more and more people, and certainly our leadership has embraced this. I speak about this on a national level, as well as in the Commonwealth of Virginia to our dealers, and everyone is on the team. It's a matter of getting the product as soon as they can build product and get it to us with the chips and so forth. We expect to have numerous models, as many as 75 to 80 models in the next, and some say 15 years, but I'm going to tell you it's probably going to be closer to 10 years. We're going to have ample models. So you have lots of choices. You don't have to buy a $120,000 EV. You'll be able to buy them for $25,000, $35,000, $45,000, and so forth. So they're coming for sure. This is the reality, and everybody understands that. Everybody wants to be part of this unique experience. I was pleased to see Toyota recently committed in the state of North Carolina $1.2 billion to build electric battery factory. Toyota was a little slow to come to the game, but they're all in now, and they're totally motivated. They've even got a truck they're working on and some other things. So I'm very excited about Toyota's commitment. And again, the dealers are not, they're not naive about that. They understand that as well. They're glad to have their OEM, the original equipment manufacturer, excited as well to make this kind of commitment, particularly in the Southeast. So it's a great thing. We helped lead the fight on Virginia becoming a part of CARB, the California Air Resource Board. We worked hard on that. I will tell you, I took a lot of hits for that from a lot of friends saying, why in the world would you be in the middle of that? I've had the privilege of working for dealers now for 43 years. And I will tell you why I'm in the middle of that, because I'm a believer that change is a great thing and change should be embraced. And with many of our legislator friends on this call tonight, they were instrumental in working with us, and we working with them, vice versa, and embracing CARB. And now it's a matter of making Virginia part of this to make sure we do, in fact, get the cars. I will tell you also that we have tried desperately to get some money out there for rebates to incentivize folks, average people to buy EVs, and the rebates will make a difference. We haven't had much success. I'd hoped we would do it during the last couple months, rather this administration, but we're going to have to hit the ground hard. I know with our senators on this call and the delegates on this call that we've got a good chance of pushing it because, for one, this association and many others involved in today's call are in favor of this. We've learned from watching Georgia as an example, when you have some additional rebate money available, that you get a greater acceptance. The money goes away, the sales of EVs decline. The OEMs have said, if Virginia will incentivize, we will get more cars quicker into the Commonwealth of Virginia. So let's push in 2022 for incentives. We don't need them forever. We need them long enough to get average folks to get excited and help reduce the overall price of buying those vehicles. We also have a lot of charging station options already. We've got federal money coming in for that. I have found that charging is really not an issue. I put one in my home. I've got one here at the office. It's quick, it's easy, it's fun. I took my 92-year-old father-in-law, an engineer by trade, for a ride in the car the other day. He'd never been in an electric car. And he said, what do you do when you drive by gas stations? And he looked at me and goes, I guess you just wave at them. I said, I do. It's a great feeling to know that I can drive for days and days with my local normal driving in Richmond and have on the same charge. So it's a wonderful, wonderful thing. And I hope people are excited about that. There's many fast chargers coming. Car dealers are putting them in their lots as we speak. They will make those available to the public at large. They're also spending a lot of money in order to retrofit their dealerships to make sure that they are indeed EV. In fact, if they don't make the commitment, we have suggested you might want to sell out and move on because EVs are our future. And we've had some actually make that decision. This is the future of this industry, and we are on the electric train moving at a rapid pace. And so car dealers are spending, in terms of a minimum of $200,000 to $300,000 to retrofit their dealerships to make sure they can indeed work on EVs. So it's very, very good. The manufacturers have required these commitments to show that they're in the game. The only thing I worry about at all is the fact that it's changing so rapidly that today's charging stations, we will literally laugh about them 3 years from now because the technology is going to rapidly increase, and we'll be able to charge even quicker by having things in the roads, as an example, that you drive over, and will actually charge your cars and so forth. we need the legislature and the good individuals on this call tonight and many others. We've got to get them to be on this team to understand the impact of what EVs mean for the Commonwealth, for our environment, for our economy, for the health of people. And we need to sell that. This should not be an R or a D subject matter, in my opinion. This is about the what's good for individuals, good for our economy. And as I to remind my dealers, what time in your life or in history have you been able to now go out and sell vehicles that will literally change and move every ICE engine out of their fleet and destroy those ICE engines at some point than EVs? This is a great time to sell lots of vehicles, hundreds of millions of vehicles in the United States of America to a lot of people, and what a great experience that will be. Finally, what we do need the Commonwealth to do is to also lead from the front. And we have asked the administration, this current administration, to consider this, and we certainly will push again in 22, and that is a certain percentage of the fleet of cars that the Commonwealth has, those that can be used as EVs, should in fact be EVs. Again, leading from the front, but average folks driving around an EV saying to their friends and their neighbors and those that they socialize with, man, I drove an EV. What a great car. It's so fast, you wouldn't believe it. And everyone who's driven my EV says the same thing. This is an incredible experience. Ladies and gentlemen, you are trailblazing uniquely. In years from now, you'll look back at the role that you played, because EVs are our future. Get on the electric train, get others to get on the electric train, and let's make this work. And let's do a great job for our environment, for the Commonwealth of Virginia. Thank you for the opportunity to talk to you tonight. And this association is committed to helping you make sure that EVs are indeed our future in the Commonwealth of Virginia. Thank you, and have a great evening tonight.
Don, thank you so much. Really appreciate that. Thank you for being here. Totally agree. You know, the future is EVs, and the future for Virginia is about accelerating the adoption of transportation electrification. Thank you very much for those words. Before we hand it over to Blair and Kim, a few quick housekeeping items. All attendees will remain on mute throughout the event. Use the Q&A to submit questions. We'll get to as many of them as we can. So without further ado, Blair, Kim, you want to take it over?
Absolutely. Thanks, Stuart. And thank you, Don Hall, for those fantastic opening remarks. I have a Mini Cooper electric vehicle, and it would not fit for people who are 6'2". I barely fit in the back seat, but we wanted a small car, and it fits me, my husband, and the dogs. So it's great. We are getting ready to upgrade our first participant, who's going to ask and kick off the questions this evening. I believe our team is doing that in the back and bringing up Kelly. Kelly is going to turn on her video and unmute herself. And her first question is for Delegate David Reid. Kelly, you have the floor.
Hello, thank you very much. I'm Kelly Bobeck. I actually work for the Volvo Group, which we have Volvo trucks that are manufactured in Dublin, Virginia. And we also have a Mack medium duty facility that's only a few years old in Roanoke. We also have Volvo Penta, which is our North American headquarters are in Chesapeake, with over 3,000 employees in Virginia. So Virginia is a very important state for us. With all that being said, and of course we have the an electric truck, and we have the Penta with your electric drivetrain. So e-mobility is extremely important for the Volvo Group. But with all that being said, what are some of Virginia's approaches to spur manufacturing and supply chain growth of electromobility solutions for medium and heavy duty vehicles within the state?
So Kelly, thanks very much. That's a great question. And Blair and everyone, thanks very much for having me on today. I apologize that I can't do a video, but I actually needed to be able to get home from Richmond. And I had a chance to go down and visit the Volvo plant down in Dublin, and they have a very impressive facility down there. And I think that one of the things that's really interesting to people in Virginia is that that is the location where Volvo makes all of their large trucks for North America, both diesel as well as electric vehicle. Now, I think there's a couple things that we can do in the state, and some of those are things that probably that the governor just announced today, is that we need to actually be doing more investment in the way of providing manufacturing development sites that are site ready. And to that end, today the governor announced that he was going to be putting $150 million in the upcoming budget $100 million of that would be for large mega sites, which would be an opportunity for us to be able to court and bring other large auto manufacturers to the Commonwealth. The other thing that I think that we can do is we need to continue, and we especially need to look at the money that we're going to be getting from the federal government to be able to invest in electric charging vehicle infrastructure, not only for light and medium duty vehicles, but also for heavy duty vehicles like the semi trucks that are being made in Dublin. Because again, sometimes at the early stages, they might have limited range, but they still have the ability to be able to provide capabilities to move wood to and from the paper mill, or to move goods from out of the port into actual distribution areas. So I think we need to invest in business ready sites. We need to invest in infrastructure. And then one of the things that we've already done is we've actually made it allowable so that the heavier trucks with the batteries can actually be driven on Virginia roads. That's something that we passed last year. So I think that's three of the things that we need to continue to focus on and look at for the future to be able to bring more manufacturing like the Volvo facility to Virginia.
Thank you, Delegate Reid, and I also thank you for making the trip from Loudoun County all the way to Dublin to look at and test drive the Volvo truck. And I encourage any members of the legislature, if you would like to see these trucks, we would love to host you as well.
And if I can just add in, Kelly and Blair, it was a fantastic tour, and I actually got to drive one of the electric semi trucks, and so I've had that experience as well.
Kelly, I will see you soon. I would like to drive an electric truck. I'm sure my father, who's watching this, is having a panic attack about the concept of me behind the wheel of an electric truck, but I am here for it.
Blair,
thank you, Delegate Reid.
It works just like your Mini Cooper.
Well, thank you, Delegate Reid, and thank you, Kelly. I believe our next guest participant is coming on now.
Yes.
Should show up soon. Take it away, Kim.
Thanks, Blair. And I just want to let everyone here know we've been keeping it a little bit quiet because we truly want to make sure that we're building some bipartisan support. But Don Hall mentioned that one of the things the Commonwealth can do to make sure that we're continuing to lead on transportation electrification is to make sure that state fleets here in Virginia are optimized by looking at all available options, including electric vehicles, which will save the Commonwealth money and reduce vehicle pollution. So that's something that will be on the table this legislative session, fingers crossed, and we're truly trying to build some support across the board for that. And so the next question is going to be coming from Chris Gleason. And Chris, you'll be asking this question, I think, to Senator Surovell.
Chris, you're on mute.
Age-old note that you're on mute, Chris.
How about that now? Can you hear me? Okay, good. So my name is Chris Gleason. I'm the general manager of Price Automotive in Charlottesville. It was great to hear Don Hall so excited, like so many EV owners, about the EV experience. And I think it's a good opportunity for everybody to get behind an EV. The one thing that as a dealership person is how Virginia can support the dealerships and the community to adapt to the changing of the business model. We're investing heavily into infrastructure, which means adding a lot of electricity and to be able to accommodate the future for EV chargers and infrastructure and a lot of expense and get EV ready. Thank you.
So is that your question is how can we help the dealerships?
Well, yeah, just in terms of, is there anything that would be, because part of, and Don Hall had mentioned this, was that our electric chargers will also be like, for the example, we're spending about $200,000 with ChargePoint, and those will also be EV stations that will be available to the public for use. And but it's money that will be spent, and although we'll use it, it'll be into the infrastructure and to see if there will be any potential assistance in the future.
Right. Well, so first of all, I'm one of the, I believe what is now 8 members of the General Assembly EV caucus. we're not official, but I think there's now 8 of us that drive EVs.
Congratulations.
Thanks. And I've actually been driving one for about 3 years now, but
Good.
I was down in Midlothian, I think 2 weeks ago for a travel soccer tournament, and the hotel I stayed at didn't have a charger. And so I needed to put about, I needed to refill most of my Tesla battery. So I took it over to the Ford dealership across the street and parked it there overnight and charged it up, which was the closest charger I could find. So, you know, I parked at many of these dealership chargers, and I think they're a big part of the charging network. So first of all, I think Virginia needs a grant program for commercial charging infrastructure.
Yes.
I vacation every year in upstate New York, and I discovered that in upstate New York, the state will actually pay for a level 2 charger at any business that asks for it. They'll cover almost the entire cost. They have a big pool of money available for that. And I stay in a little tiny town up in rural New York in every year, and I went to every single business there. I was telling every one of them, you need to put in a grant because I shouldn't have to plug my car into a 120 volt outlet everywhere. But I think New York is ahead of us, at least on that. But I think with the infrastructure bill that just passed, the feds made available, I want to say, I think $7.5 billion for charging infrastructure, and a big slug of that is going to go to state grant programs. And I think we ought to be able to tap that. We ought to create our own state program to try and tap that. Number one. Number two, I think we ought to have some kind of a tax credit program. And I know Delegate Reid has put in a bill, I think for, I know it's for the purchase of cars. I can't remember if, David, if your bill also has a credit for actual chargers, but I put in a bill a couple of years ago to do that. It didn't get funded, so it didn't pass. But to me, the infrastructure is absolutely a key piece for adoption. When I talk to people, you know, about why they haven't bought one, a lot of people, you know, talk about how, you know, I can't put one in at my townhouse, I can't put one in my condo or my apartment. You know, I need to have a place that's convenient to charge. And level 2 charging doesn't work well if you're running an errand. But if you can do a fast charger and plug your car into a fast charger while you hop into a grocery store, you can, you know, fill your battery all the way up and knock it out. And so we need to have some programs, additional programs available with some actual funding and tax credits to enable our businesses to be able to afford these things. Because, you know, a fast charger, you're probably looking at $100,000 investment. It's a lot of money. And
With with our I've been with Dominion Energy working on this, and to put 2 of the new 800 amp chargers in between Dominion Energy and a new transformer and all that, but 2 of them at our dealership, it's going to be about $150 for the 2 of them. So it's significant, but they will be able to fast charge the vehicle, and that's going to be the future.
Right. Now it's a little bit more than the $500 level 2 charger I put on my house.
A bit.
In any event, but I think we definitely need to tap those federal grant program, and I think we ought to use some of these one-time monies that we have available right now in our budget to maybe create some new grant programs or tax credits as well.
We'll keep up the efforts. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you, Senator Surovell, and thanks, Chris, for that question.
Okay. Well, Chris, you have officially made me feel like I need to level up my style and wear a bow tie on our next event. But we are now joined by Nick, and he is going to ask a question to Senator Boysko. Nick, go ahead.
Hi, thank you, Senator, and thank you, panel. Appreciate being here. My name is Nick James. I'm with SemiConnect, and we are a part of the solution for the infrastructure as a EV charging station manufacturer. So everything that everybody's discussing tonight is just something that I hear every day. My question centers around the bipartisan infrastructure package that recently passed, where Congress awarded $107 million to the build out EV charging in the Commonwealth. And I was wondering, Senator, what are your thoughts on how those funds should best be put to use?
Thank you so much, Nick. I appreciate that question. I'm so excited. I just got a briefing. I sit on the Northern Virginia Transportation Authority, and I just got a high level summary of the infrastructure plan. I mean, the fact that we can look forward to something in the range of $106 million over the next 5 years for our transportation and EV infrastructure from the federal government is really gives me a lot of hope and excited about that. So, you know, I carried a bill a few years ago. I asked Secretary Valentine, who's a transportation secretary, to conduct a study on the electrification of Virginia's transportation system to start getting some answers to questions like what you've just asked. And last year, I did another bill that carried it on. We added the EV infrastructure needs assessment to the Virginia Energy Plan, specifically so we can get to the bottom of this using data, data-driven analysis to get the answers to what we need. So what I understand that we are, going to track our transportation electrification. We're going to identify where the infrastructure is needed. We're going to highlight opportunities to lower the obstacles and accelerate adoption. Also, it's not just going to be for commercial use. It's also going to be for our fleet, our state fleets, our airports, our bus systems, and looking at our grid, right? We know that this is going to bring new electricity demands for our grid, our power supplies. And so we've got to make sure that we're all really thinking through that, using the people who are really at the front lines on that. And I'm so glad that you are in the middle of that. To give you a little more detail, so we asked them to include data regarding the number and types of electric and hybrid electric vehicles that are currently on the road, and then making the projections, working with folks like you, folks like Nicole Branco from Volkswagen, folks like Don Hall, to figure out what our projections are for the future. I was just at a conference in New Mexico with a group of legislators from all around the country. The president of the auto dealers for the whole country was there talking about, this is the wave of the future. We are not going back. We are moving towards EV adaptation, and Virginia needs to get on board and stay at the front of the pack, because the economic opportunities that we have in front of us are just phenomenal. And so we will be working with you to try to make sure that we do this as thoughtfully and successfully as possible.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Thank you so much, Senator, and thank you so much, Nick. I'm going to hand things over to Kim while our next speaker joins us.
Thanks, Blair. And the next person we have up is John, and John has a question, I think, for Senator McClellan. There you are.
Oh,
Yep.
there we go. I think I clicked the button one too many times. Well, good evening. It's certainly a pleasure to be here this evening. I'm John Rosenberger. I work in the Business Development Department for the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers. We represent electrical workers throughout the state of Virginia. We have 5 different local unions down there, and we cover every nook and cranny of Virginia. And we're going to be the folks that are out there installing the electric vehicle charging stations. And we've actually been working across the country with electric vehicle infrastructure training program, which trains electrical workers and gets them certifications in installing these electric vehicle charging stations. And Senator McClellan, it's certainly a pleasure to see you. And we have a training center right there in Richmond, Virginia. And I guess I have a 2-part question. What can we do to make sure the transition to EVs benefits the workers in Virginia? And the second part would be, what sorts of labor standards are necessary to make certain that the industry does right by these workers?
Well, thank you for that question. And it's a really timely one, because we've seen throughout history that whenever you transition from one technology to another, if you don't do that transition right, you are going to leave workers behind who are trained to handle one type of manufacturing or one type of installation, but not retrained to do the new installations. And we sometimes lag behind in whether it's our career technical education, whether it's through community college, whether it's through your training programs, making sure that we are investing in enough training programs and education to train the workers in the new technology quickly, and making sure that we also do it in a way where all kinds of workers benefit. So making sure we're having partnerships in a wide variety and a diverse communities, so that those workers come from those diverse communities. So I think that's the first step, is making sure we are investing in these training programs, the ones like yours that we know are working, that we bring them to scale as quickly as possible to meet this transition, and that we make sure that those jobs, that the new jobs are good paying jobs, and that those workers do not lose the rights that they had in doing other industries, so that all of your workers now, whatever kinds of installations they are doing as they transition to installing electric vehicle charging stations, that they keep those rights that they had. So those are a couple of things that we need to do. But first, we need to not be reactive. And I think sometimes we wait until it's a little too late to meet the demand that we have now. So we're already a little bit behind in meeting the needs that we have, but we need to ramp that up very quickly.
Well, thank you very much, Senator. I couldn't agree with you more. And next time I'm in Richmond, we'd love to have you over to visit one of the training centers there and show you exactly what we are doing. So thanks for the opportunity. I look forward to working with everyone.
Thank you. Excited to do that.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, John. I believe I'm going to get our next participant up. Kim, I'm sorry if I'm out of order, let me know. But I believe our next participant is just joining us now. Glenn is here from Fermata Energy, and Glenn's question is for you, Delegate Reid. Glenn, are you with us?
I am. I was with you all along, and then I got dumped out, and now I'm back in. Okay. Yes, Delegate Reid. My name is Glenn Scott. I'm the Chief Technology Officer of a company called Fermata Energy, and we're here in Charlottesville. Our business is vehicle to grid services, and what we do is we use electric vehicles as energy storage resources and allow greater use of the battery in the vehicle by allowing our customers to earn money while they're parked and connected to the grid by being able to enable bidirectional power flow to the car. So bidirectional chargers. And I'm an electrical engineer, that's what I designed. So my question is, how does vehicle to grid technology factor into the future of transportation electrification in the Commonwealth? And how can Virginia expand the use of EVs as energy storage units?
So Glenn, that's a really good question, because I think one of the things, and Don kind of mentioned this, because it's like we have a large number of EVs on the market right now, and the current OEM, the manufacturers are actually adding more. And as a matter of fact, one of, I think, the compelling features of the new Ford F-150 Lightning is they actually advertise it as being able to actually be able to power a house when the power goes down. So this is something that we're going to have to consider, and we're going to have to take into consideration. Now, I also say that one of the things that we looked at during, I think it was the 2021 session, was legislation that was going to actually use electric school buses, and when they were not actually going out and taking children to and from school, they would be back at the school and plugged in, and the batteries would be able to store energy, presumably from renewable energy during the day, and then release energy back into the grid later. And this is something that we're going to have to come to grips with, because it's like the Virginia Clean Economy Act actually mandates that Dominion develop some type of battery storage capability. And the electric school bus option that we're considering in 2021 was one of those type of things where it would actually allow us to do two things. One is to actually be able to provide school systems with school buses that were electric, and then be able to use the large batteries in those for vehicle to grid technology later in the evening. I think we're going to have to continue to work on that, because that particular piece of legislation was not well received. It didn't pass. but the concept is there. And I think that it's a way that we need to begin moving forward. So you're spot on. It's something that we need to do. And there is the technology out there now with both what you're doing and what we were looking at in last year's session and what we know is coming with Ford. So it's part of the future and we need to embrace that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate Reid, and thank you, Glenn. I'm going to hand things over to Kim.
Awesome. Thanks, Blair. I just want to say I've always already been excited about transportation electrification for those of you that work with me on a day-to-day basis, but seeing all these folks from different industries and sectors be so engaged is really exciting. So thanks everyone for being here. And next up we have Matt Stanberry, and he has another question for Senator Surovell.
Thank you very much, Kim and Blair, and to the whole panel. Appreciate the opportunity to ask a question. So I work for a company called Highland Electric Fleets that's 100% focused on helping school districts via long-term partnerships to 100% electrify their fleets. We're the largest buyer of electric school buses in the country and are working with districts all over Virginia in various stages of discussion with them about their journey to electric. And Senator, thank you very much for all of your leadership on electrification. It's incredible to see how far Virginia has come over the last couple of years on the policy front. I wanted to ask a question specific to electric school buses and get your perspective on what we need to do from a policy perspective to accelerate their adoption in the state. What's the next move in your view?
Well, thanks for that question. Diesel emissions are about the last thing our kids need to be lurking around while they're hanging out, waiting to get on the bus or getting picked up, and for a lot of different reasons, which I think are pretty obvious. But and your question was a real sore spot in our last session. The Senate passed Senator Lucas's electric school bus bill, I don't know, 2 or 3 times, and it sort of bogged down right at the end of session. And so, first of all, Dominion had one concept that they pressed that the Senate was supportive of. The House had a few members that didn't like it. I suspect we might see that back again this session. And given the change in the House of Delegates, maybe to be more favorably received. I don't know. There's sort of bipartisan angst about the way that was structured, but basically the idea, I think, was that Dominion wanted to play a part in helping to purchase the buses and using the batteries in the buses as a source of energy storage for them to use, as we just talked a moment ago, and when the wind isn't blowing or when the sun isn't out. And I think that, this energy storage piece is a huge part, and we can't have a renewable grid without real energy storage. And myself and Senator McClellan carried a bill for her. It was part of her VCEA bill back in 2020. I carried a piece of the VCEA, which was the piece that said that 3,500 megawatts of energy storage was in the public interest, and that the STC was sort of directed to allow our investor-owned utilities to invest in energy storage, to incentivize that energy storage. And it seems to me that authority with the utilities coupled with our school bus situation is a real opportunity that we need to figure out how to take advantage of. So I think that's one thing. Secondly, we tend to sort of be about, with our localities, we tend to be more about sort of grants and matching funds. I'm kind of more into mandates myself. And I just had a constituent tonight who emailed me complaining, about how the school buses still aren't mandated to have seatbelts. And I think that personally, I would just prefer just to tell all these localities that they can't buy any more diesel school buses, period. And they just got to start planning on investing in electric buses and dealing with it. And I know it's more expensive, but it's only more expensive on the front end. To a society, it's less expensive on a net basis, and it's less expensive over time. I think I've calculated I've saved something like $5,000 or $6,000 this year in the 25,000 miles I've driven with my car. And if you're driving an electric bus, I guarantee you it's a lot cheaper to operate and repair and everything else. And I think once people really look at the complete economics of these transactions, they'll understand it's actually cheaper for taxpayers to make these investments. So there's there's a lot of persuasion that we need to do. So from my perspective, that's what we need to do. We really need to figure out how to use the energy storage piece that we've already created as part of the VCA. And I think we need to really have a serious discussion about just basically prohibiting the purchase of diesel school buses going forward. That's where I come out. I'm not sure everybody agrees with me about that, but that's where I am.
Thank you very much, Senator. Love to follow up with you. There are some ways that we can bring a lot of private financing to match utility investment in vehicle to grid programs and battery usage, and love to follow up.
Yeah, and by the way, I just noticed in the chat, somebody else pointed out that in the current administration has already spent about $10 million for 39 electric school buses, but you know, I suspect there might be some federal money available for programs like this in the future too, but that's where I am. And I'm happy to work with you on that. I look forward to that.
Great. Well, thank you, Matt, for joining us. Thank you, Senator Surovell, for those answers. Next up, we have Bob Kitchen from the Virginia Clinicians for Climate Action. And his question is going to be for Senator Boysko and maybe her cat, if they have any additional context.
Good evening, Senator Boysko. And now makes me want to have my dog on my lap. So I'm Bob Kitchen, representing Virginia Clinicians for Climate Action. Our organization has over 400 health professional members, and our mission is to support climate change solutions that protect the health of Virginia's residents. Last year, VCCA released a report on Transportation Virginia, which analyzed the health impact of particulate matter 2.5 in the Commonwealth. This report found that PM 2.5, generated by Virginia-specific transportation, was responsible annually for an additional 92 deaths, 71 heart attacks, and 220 asthma cases, with healthcare costs of $750 million for the Commonwealth. Transportation electrification is a critical tool to protect Virginians' health. My question is, what solutions are needed to build upon Governor Northam's recent decision to sign the medium and heavy-duty zero-emission vehicle MOU? How can we accelerate the use of electrified medium and heavy-duty vehicles in the Commonwealth? Thank you.
Thank you for the question, Bob. And I'll tell you, I'm asthmatic. My daughters are asthmatic. This is something that really is important to us firsthand, but we know that there are children all over the Commonwealth and adults who have breathing problems. And one of the things that, you know, I was so pleased that the governor signed the MOU to limit down at least 30% of all new trucks and buses sold will be zero emission vehicles by 2030. I mean, that's a huge thing for him to have done. We know that clean energy is better for all of us, and the transportation you know, all of our cars and trucks are at least half of our emissions in Virginia. So, you know, I think looking at the federal funding that is coming down from the Biden administration, again, I think we are now looking at the opportunity for grants. So $2.5 billion in grants over the next 5 years for innovative ideas. The $5 billion over 5 years for charging, so that, again, and Scott was talking about this, that we have to have that confidence before we move forward with getting an EV. I think it's going to be imperative, because the cost is so high especially for these bigger trucks and buses, as we were just talking about, that we have some grant programs, some sort of rebates, some sort of assistance so that they are affordable. You know, I look forward to working with all of my colleagues to try to make that more feasible for everybody. But I'll be looking and watching, and certainly looking to you for input as we move forward, because the health of our kids, I mean, if we don't have that, what do we have? So thank you for the work that you do.
Exactly. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Bob. And next, I think we're going to toss it to a new face, I'm sure, to all of you, Harry Godfrey, who has a question for Senator McClellan.
Hi, Senator. Good evening. Harry Godfrey with Virginia Advanced Energy Economy. Good to see you, and good to see everybody on the call today. And thank you all so much for making the time this evening. Virginia Advanced Energy Economy, for anybody who doesn't already know, we are a trade association, represents a set of businesses across the advanced energy and transportation landscape, including a number that you've heard from tonight. In total, our industry employs over 93,000 people throughout the Commonwealth, including over 5,000 folks in the advanced transportation landscape. So lots of folks building these vehicles, servicing these vehicles, and building the infrastructure and the charging network necessary in order to sustain them. We were part of a larger coalition that worked obviously with the leadership that's on this call today and leadership in the House as well to advance the important clean cars legislation that got passed last year. And we've seen that enacted. And we are really encouraged to see that. Thank you, Senator, for your leadership around that issue. Obviously, as we approach the 22 session, the leadership coming into the governor's mansion and the leadership in the House looks a little bit different. Interested in your thoughts around the prospects for and maybe the risks or threats to that legislation as we look at the session, and what EV advocates, companies like ours can do in order to protect that.
Well, thank you, Harry, for that question. It's sort of a good news, bad news answer. The good news is, as you know, the Senate didn't change, and the Clean Car standard bill passed. While it passed on a party line vote, all 21 senators that voted for it are still there. And I feel confident that we can hold the line and prevent any bills that would repeal it or undercut it or gut it or anything like that. That's the good news. The bad news is the incoming governor has already shown that he is going to try to use executive orders to do what he may not be able to do with the legislature. He said he was going to use an executive order to try to take Virginia out of the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative. Not sure he can do that, not clear he can do that because there is still a regulatory process. But I do think this administration is going to, where they can, either through regulation, through executive order, or just through not making these issues a priority, and when they have an implementation role, sort of slow walking it. So what you need to do is make your voices heard at every level. In the House, to let the House members know you don't want to see legislation rolling us back. In the Senate, to say thank you for what you've done, keep it up. To the governor, to all of the agencies. And I think coming at it, we already know there are different messages that work with different people. For a lot of us, this is the right thing to do because it helps to reduce emissions. It helps to address greenhouse gases. It helps with all the health effects, as we talked about with asthma, but it also creates jobs. And this transition is going to happen whether Virginia is at the front of the pack or the back. So we may as well be at the front. And I think for this governor approaching it from that perspective to say, look, this is jobs. This is good for the economy. This is new industry. This is manufacturing that can come here. This is high paid jobs for workers. And it has the benefit of helping the environment and helping with healthcare. We got to use every lever we have, but your voice is your power. And if ever it was time for you to speak up early and often and loudly, it is now. Don't wait until session starts. Let him know now that you expect Virginia to continue to lead in this transition and not fall to the back.
Thank you so much, Senator. And no, we'll be right there delivering that message to folks.
Thank you, Harry, and thank you, Senator. I'll kick it over to Blair.
Thanks, Kim, and absolutely thank you, Senator, for that answer. Our next question is from Godfrey, and he has a question for Delegate Reid. Godfrey, I hand the floor to you.
Thank you so much, Blair. Can everyone hear me okay? I think so.
Yes.
Excellent. Good evening, everyone. My name is Godfrey Godosolo, and I'm representing the Electrification Coalition. The Electrification Coalition is a nonpartisan, nonprofit accelerating the deployment of EVs through a variety of policy and implementation levers. Our theory of change is using EVs to bolster national security by decreasing dependence on oil. Thank you so much for having me. And my question for Delegate Reid is, what role does transportation electrification play in overall energy security? And what does that look like specifically for Virginians? Thank you so much.
So Dockery, that's a really very good question. And especially because you may or may not know that I spent 23 years in the Navy Reserves as an intelligence officer. And this is one of those things where early on, the military recognized that our dependence on foreign oil actually has a tendency to shape our foreign policy. Because if we have to commit US forces to places in the Middle East to maintain the flow of oil, not only for the United States, but for our allies in Europe, it means that we have limited options as far as being able to actually decide whether or not we can or we cannot do something, because we have such this dependency on oil. And as most of you probably know, I think 48% of the carbon that is put into the atmosphere in Virginia right now comes from the transportation sector. So if we actually look at being able to incentivize, and this goes back to what Don Hall was talking about, and I've not had a chance to look at the entire budget yet, but many of you are probably aware of the fact of the EV rebate bill that we were able to pass in 2021. The governor signed it, it just didn't get funded. And so we need to be able to incentivize light and medium use vehicles so that, again, Don's dealers will be able to actually encourage and get enthusiasm with buying those things. As Senator Boysko was talking, we need to be able to incentivize things as far as school buses and large trucks as well. And all of those things play into that role of actually reducing our dependence on foreign oil and actually enhancing our security posture. So it's a really good question. I think all of the Virginia kind of are moving us in that direction.
Thank you, Delegate Reid.
So much. I think you hit out our talking points better than I did. It was excellent. Thank you so much, Delegate Reid.
Well, Dockery, it's something that I've thought a lot about, so thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you both. Kim, over to you.
Absolutely. Next up, I think we have Praveen, and he has a question for Senator Surovell.
There I go, doing the new. Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Praveen Kathpal. And thanks for the chance to ask a question. Thanks to our hosts, and thanks to all the members who've joined us this evening. I lead an Arlington-based startup company called Motor, which helps electric utilities accelerate consumer EV adoption and get those cars connected to the grid. And we believe that achieving 50% of car sales becoming electric by 2030 is not only important for meeting climate targets, but it's going to take a lot more than just building charging stations and manufacturing cars. So we've been working to solve that demand gap by creating new EV drivers every day, by providing an easy experience that includes getting people a car, charger, home installation, and getting connected to the grid. So earlier this year, we launched in the city of Indianapolis, and by making it super easy to go electric, we actually increased residential EV adoption in Indianapolis this year by 20%, providing 1 out of every 6 new EVs there. So here's my question. Similar to how utilities have played an active role in the adoption of other technologies, going back to the air conditioner, and then today, energy efficiency products like smart thermostats, which is done today by offering rebates on the utilities marketplace websites. What do you think about applying that same concept toward utilities in the Commonwealth, generating online EV sales for Virginia automobile dealers?
Sorry, say it one more time. What's the method you want to use?
It's applying the same concept that's used in energy efficiency, where right now utilities are playing a role in the adoption of smart thermostats, basically by offering those products for sale on their marketplace websites, including rebates. So basically applying that same concept to utilities playing a more active role, generating online EV sales for Virginia automobile dealers.
Right. Well, when I talk to people, I get a lot of really basic questions from people when they ask me about, the car that sits in my driveway. They want to know, I have a pedestal. My car, I have a driveway. I don't have a garage. And so people ask me, well, how did you get the charger installed? Like, well, I called an electrician. Well, how did you get the thing? We had to dig a trench, and and well, how much did that cost?
Same situation in my house.
Yeah, we get a lot of questions from people about exactly the logistics of transitioning and how do you do it and how complicated it is and how expensive is it, and we really need to get that information out. Dominion, I think, I don't know whether APCO did or not, but Dominion, for example, had a side gig where they were putting out generators for people's homes, and I think you get a thing in your electric bill, and they would say, hey, we can also do generators, and that probably helped with the adoption of emergency generators. And I think that they have a lot of ability and a lot of resources to get people's attention and focused on this. Another thing that I think that the utilities could do, we're not quite there yet, is by modernizing their meters, so that we have smart meters so that you can charge your car at night, A, when they can charge you a lower rate, and B, when you can use less carbon-based electricity to charge your car. I mean, I like to tell people that I charge my car at night and it's actually nuclear powered, because they can't turn the nuclear reactors off. So those things go in full force at night, and they turn the gas and the coal on during the day. It's all nuclear at night. But in any event, I know once we get the smart meters deployed, you'll be able to, for example, run your dishwasher, your dry your clothes, wash your clothes, and charge your car at night when they can charge you a lower rate. And I think that will help also with adoption, to make it cheaper to charge. And so I think the utility companies sort of stand in a really important place in terms of furthering this. So I think that could definitely, those things, they could definitely play a role, and they will help. And it's also, by the way, in their incentive. I mean, I think utility stocks are probably a great place to invest right now, because everything seems to be going electric, and I think they're going to be selling a lot more electricity over the next century. But some of us live in houses that can't have solar panels, so we can't generate our own. Like me, I like my trees. So, but in any event, I think they're incentivized to do this, and I think we need to partner with them.
Thanks a lot. Have a good evening.
Thanks, y'all. And from between national security and the utilities conversations we're having here, I think I need to go back to school to be able to keep up with the folks here. So I'll pick it up.
Kim, I feel bad. Well, thank you, Senator. And our next question is John Park from Roanoke, and I see a photo of his car, EV Watts, behind him. And yes, I know its name. And his question is for Senator Boysko. John, you have the floor.
Thank you guys so much for hosting this session tonight. And thank you for all the panelists that are taking time out of their busy schedule to be here. The question I have actually is for Senator Boysko. And I don't know if you recognize that photo behind me that was actually taken at your alma mater. I did a little snooping on you to see, and so I actually live like 2 minutes from Hollins University. So that photo was taken right there.
Gosh, is that in front of the barn? The horse
Yes,
barn?
it is in front of the barn. Yes.
Yeah. Yep. The lower barn by the parking lot. Yep.
Oh,
Yep.
man.
So my question is so I actually don't represent any organizations. I'm just a EV owner. I've owned an EV for the past 3 years now, and just have an excitement about over 4 EVs. And Blair has snatched me up and has asked me to participate in these things. So my question is how can state and local governments lead by example? The city of Roanoke has demonstrated just how cost-effective electrifying municipal fleets can be. How can Virginia build on this and transition and electrify government fleets to demonstrate that EVs are ready to get to work and gain visibility in the public eye?
Yeah, that's a great question. And by the way, I was just at Hollins a few weeks ago, and it was so lovely to be there. It's one of my favorite places in the world. I'm not biased or anything. You've lived in a great community. So, I mean, what we're doing tonight, I think, is one of the steps that we can do. We need to continue talking about EV infrastructure, helping build awareness in the community and with the people that we know and our constituents, that we will have the adequate charging and infrastructure set so that they have a confidence that it's, when they're ready to get a new vehicle, that they will consider strongly. I think that the things like the rebates and tax incentives are another carrot that we can dangle out there, and I'm supportive of that. And I think that as you see, I live in Northern Virginia, and everywhere I go, the private sector is already coming to the table. So you go to Target and their EV charging stations. You go to Mom's Organic grocery store and their charging stations right there. They're starting to show up everywhere. So working with companies that are interested in investing in Virginia and bringing this business to Virginia, I think we as legislators and community leaders should embrace that and make sure that we are helping them navigate the system so that they understand, what they need to do in order to work with our local government. But also, I think, the word of mouth, doing things like this tonight, where we have leaders from all over the Commonwealth of industry, as well as community leaders here, ready to talk about it, ready to push it forward. I think that's a great step in the right direction. And I appreciate your question.
Yes, thank you so much, Senator.
I may or may not have paired the two of you for this exact reason. Kim, over to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Blair. And I think we're rounding it out, at least for this portion, with Narissa Turner. And Narissa has a question for Senator McClellan.
Good evening. I'm Narissa Turner with the Virginia Conservation Network, Virginia's powerful, diverse, and highly coordinated conservation movement made up of over 150 network partners spread out across the Commonwealth. And I'm so happy to be able to ask the last question of Senator McClellan, and that is, EVs are cleaner than gas-powered cars, no matter the energy source, but they're even cleaner when combined with clean energy. How is Virginia ensuring that our EVs are as clean as possible?
Thank you, Narissa, for that question. And I love the intersectionality of that question, because it recognizes that you cannot address climate change, you cannot reduce emissions, you cannot do this in a vacuum, and that the transition to electronic vehicles is good for the environment, it's good for the air, it's good for public health, but it also puts more pressure on the electricity grid. And that's why when we passed the Clean Economy Act last year, we looked at it sort of through both the supply side and the demand side. So we are transitioning to 100% clean energy here in Virginia. I think when we passed the bill, about 60% of electricity in Virginia was generated from fossil fuels, predominantly natural gas with some coal still there. But we are moving to zero, where all of our electricity generated will be from wind and solar and renewable and cleaner sources. But we didn't just stop there. We also said we need to make sure we are addressing the demand side, that we are investing in and requiring and pushing forward energy efficiency to manage that load. And I think as we go forward, we have got to build in the additional load from electronic vehicles at the same time, and really continue to ramp up energy efficiency goals on the electric generation side as well. So making sure, just like I said, it's now time to say, let's hold the line and let's not roll anything back on electronic vehicles. If we're going to have clean energy to power those vehicles, we need to hold the line and not roll anything back on our transition to a clean economy and clean energy. And so the same call to action that I gave on electronic vehicles, I'm going to give on holding the line on the VCEA. We know that we've got to remove some barriers still in place to expanding solar. We're starting to see some challenges with siting of solar facilities. We've also got workforce issues on ramping up both solar and wind. So making sure we are training the workforce to build those energy sources to meet the demand we know we're going to continue to have, and that continues to grow as we electrify our transportation system. So thank you for asking that intersectional question. It is the exact same call to action on both issues.
Thank you.
Thanks, Narissa, and thanks, Senator.
Fantastic. I could not have imagined a better question to end the evening with. Thank you, Narissa, for bringing that to us. And very quickly, and Delegate Reid, this is your heads up that you go first. I know you're driving safely, hands-free, but I want to give all of you the opportunity. We're getting towards the end of our event, and I'd like to give everybody the opportunity to provide some quick closing remarks, speaking to all of our presenters this evening, and as well as the rest of the audience. Delegate Reid, you have the floor.
Thanks, Blair. And again, thanks for getting everyone together and coordinating this, not only my fellow members from the General Assembly, but also all of the advocacy groups that are on here tonight, because it really is going to take all of us working together to be able to deliver on this. As we are actually transitioning from this fossil fuel economy to an economy that is going to be more electrified, it's going to take all of us working, because it's a really complex transition. And we have to be sure, because we want to be able to maintain a modern economy as we move forward. And it is all very possible. We just have to be sure that we have all of the parts in place. Now, I want to go back to some of Don's opening remarks, because again, many of us on this call worked together to be able to pass what I think is probably the most equitable, most progressive EV rebate program in the nation. We now need to actually make the commitment to fund that. The original study from DMME said that it was going to cost about $40 to $45 million a year, and we should be able to do that with the surpluses that we have over the next several years. And some people would say, it's like, well, why do we need to do that if there's such a high adoption rate for EVs right now? The thing is that we're still at this tipping point where we have an adoption rate among a certain group of people, but we want to be able to actually get this out to the larger group of the population to be able to address these, or to be able to actually use these vehicles. And one of the things that I think Senator Surovell talked about that I want to go back to is that the total cost of ownership of EVs is so much less than actually driving a gas-powered car. So when we actually get somebody into an EV, we're able to help them actually have a lower total cost of ownership for the entire time that they own the car. And so we're putting money back in their pockets every month that they don't have to pay for gas or oil or other things. So again, it's a complex problem, but I think we've got the right people on board to be able to address it. We just have to be willing to have the Commonwealth make the commitment with both our finances as well as our policy going forward. And then I think we can be successful. So thanks again for having me this evening.
Thank you so much, Delegate Reid. Senator Surovell, would you like to add?
Sure. Well, we keep reading in the papers every day. We're seeing in the news about, one climate emergency after another. I mean, it sounds like Antarctica is about to fall apart and methane emissions are erupting. But now, thanks to other efforts we've undertaken, transportation is now the #1 carbon emitting industry in America. It used to be utilities, but thanks to bills like what Senator McClellan passed back in 2020, VCEA, now it's cars, and cars are the next big source. I suspect we're gonna have a conversation about food eventually, but we're not gonna go there tonight. But we got to do something, and I think that this is a real opportunity with all the money flying around and all the transition that's going on. It's a real opportunity also for Virginia to maintain its best state to do business appellation, because there's so much growth potential here, and as we transition, we have to do it in a really smart way that helps our businesses. And we just heard I really appreciate VADA stepping out on this, because I think, by the way, what VADA stepping up and endorsing are moving into the I forget what they called it, but the coalition of states that have decided the clean air standards, the California clean air standards. I think that's going to make a big difference in the availability and the affordability of EVs. So it just shows that it's a pro-business move. Two things we didn't talk about tonight, which I think are also important in this. Number one, we still have a problem with a lot of homeowners associations that prohibit people from being able to install chargers in their house. I passed a bill 2 years ago called Right to Charge legislation, but we sort of bit off the low-hanging fruit, which is in condos where you own your parking spot, or we said that a condo cannot prohibit you from installing a charger if you own your parking spot, or if you have your own single-family home, they can't prohibit a charging station outside. But we still haven't solved the situation of being able to install in a condo where there's common parking or in townhouses where there's common parking. And there's a lot of Virginians that live in those situations, and we have to make charging infrastructure available to them in their homes. And it's really a complicated legal issue, but we need to tackle it. Secondly, we need to tackle our building codes. And I don't think there should be a building that's constructed today that is not at least at a minimum pre-wired for EV charging infrastructure, because it's much more expensive to go back and put wires, big fat wires like that into a building than it is when the walls are all down, you're putting it together. And I really think we need to take action on that immediately, because that'll save us a lot of money long term. So, and the last thing I'll say is, I hope everybody who's on this call will get everybody to go out and test drive their EV, because I'm telling you, once you get behind the wheel, one of these things, you do not want to go back. They're addictive as soon as you get behind the wheel. And they're a lot of fun to drive and really exciting cars, and try to get, word of mouth is the best way to spread the religion, right? So tell your friends to get out there and get in one and drive them around. And I think we'll see very rapid adoption once people start to see that.
Well, thank you so much, Senator Surovell. Those were excellent points. Senator Boysko, you're up next.
Well, thank you so much for hosting this tonight. First of all, it's so important that we're having this conversation, that we're bringing the right people to the table. And it's imperative that we continue in this footprint. I am, really appreciative of Don Hall and the auto dealers and the manufacturers. Volkswagen is in my district, and I know that they are all on board for this. I'm going to be taking a ride in a Rivian R1T car next week, and I'm excited about that. Gonna have that brought out to the town of Herndon. Whatever we can do to continue to raise awareness, to help build confidence that these are going to have the ability for people to get charged is going to be imperative. I am so excited about the opportunities to work in a bipartisan manner. These should not be partisan issues, especially when we look at the economic opportunities that we have in front of us for this new industry here in Virginia. We can be leaders. And as Scott just said, best state in the nation for business. Let's use our technology prowess to do that. But thank you so much for having us tonight. Thank you for inviting me, and let's continue to work together to build this economy that works for everyone and is clean and healthy.
Thank you so much, Senator Boysko. I couldn't have said it better than myself. And Senator McClellan, would you wrap us up, please?
Well, thank you all for hosting this very important conversation. Look, we know that a cleaner, healthier, and more sustainable future is coming with the transportation, electrification, and e-mobility. It is well within our reach. We know that the private sector is investing billions of dollars with the federal government, and now at the state level, we can do our part. We have to make sure that we're at the front of the pack on this transition and not in the back. We also have to make sure that this transition is done equitably and that we leave no part of Virginia and no communities behind. We didn't get too much into it, but there are strategies that we can use to make sure that rural Virginia, that communities of color, many of whom don't even think about buying electric vehicles because they don't see the infrastructure in their communities and in their neighborhoods to charge them. They don't have anyone talking to them about the importance of buying electric vehicles and how affordable they can be. So we need to make sure that as we are thinking about investing in and building out more electric vehicle infrastructure, we're doing it everywhere. We are putting charging stations, not just along I-95 and 64, but along 81 and some of our rural areas and in our rural communities, so that we are connecting everybody and leaving no part of Virginia. And as we touched on, leaving no worker and no community behind as we make this transition.
Thank you all so much for being here tonight. So many great questions from across the Commonwealth. Great job moderating, Kim and Blair, Delegate Reid, Senator Surovell, Boysko, McClellan, and Don Hall. It was great to hear your perspectives on transportation electrification in Virginia. We heard the many ways why electric vehicles are the future for Virginia. And I think Senator McClellan, your voice is your power. You sang that. It's so true. And for everyone on this call to find out how you can electrify your ride, reach out to Generation 180 or CCAN or Virginia AEE or Climate Cabinet or your elected officials, and let's keep moving this forward. We'll post a recording of this on Generation 180's YouTube channel. So again, thanks everyone for being here, and have a great evening.
Thank you so much. Looking forward to working with y'all in January.
Thank you.
Look forward to it.
Thank
Thank
you.
you all.
Happy
Thank you,
holidays.
everyone.
Happy holidays.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.